So you're thinking about buying a cheap property in France and then rent it out while you're not there. It's actually a fairly simple process, but there are some taxes you need to know about upfront and be able to budget for. Luckily, I just interviewed Giraud from French Tax Online about this exact scenario. You'll learn about the process for buying a property, the taxes involved with the purchase, and then the two types of annual property taxes you'll have to pay after buying. We also talk about any taxes you would pay on rental income from renting your place out, including a way to possibly pay zero in taxes for that rental income. If you're ready to learn, let's get going. Welcome, Giraud. How are you?
Hi, thank you. Very good. Thank you. What about yourself?
Very good. I appreciate you coming on and talking to me. For those that don't know, Giraud runs French Tax Online. He is a chartered tax accountant in France, and he does a bunch of other stuff, which we'll talk about shortly, but he's an expert on French taxes. And today we're going to talk about purchasing a property in France with the intention of renting it and talk about some of the taxes involved with this process. So
Yeah,
Giraud,
let's go.
Giraud, I looked up earlier on one of the French property websites a property that is for sale for 129,000 euros. Again, very affordable for a lot of American investors, considering what our real estate prices are like. But let's talk about if I'm an American and I want to buy a house in France for 129,000 euros, I'm not going to move there permanently, so I'm not going to become a tax resident. Let's talk about the purchase process to start out with and what taxes might be involved in that.
Okay. So first of all, the purchase process of a property in France is not that complicated. Okay, it's not much more complicated than in the US. It's just a bit different. So at first, you would need to visit the house, and then if you want to make an offer, you can make an offer directly to the seller or through the estate agent if there is one. Okay. Once the offer is accepted, you would sign something called compromis de vente, which is like a pre-sale contract. This is very important because the compromis de vente is pretty much the contract which would the draft contract which would be signed later. Okay, so this is really something you have to take care of and read every line. Of course, you're not French, you probably don't speak French, no worries. You will work with your own notary. I really advise you to have your own notary and not trust the other one notary. Why is that? Because you're not French and we never know what's going on. So my advice would be you to have your notary. You would not pay any euros, okay? Because notaries are paid on the sale price, right? And there is like a one-time fee for all the notaries involved. So if there is one notary, it would take all the fees. If there are two notaries, it will be pretty much half-half. Okay. So
And
there
Giraud,
is no yeah.
let me pause here just for the Americans watching this. So a notary in France is different than what we call a notary in the United States. So you're not notary in the United States, somebody you go ahead of to like sign documents. They're not quite as much of a legal profession as they are in France. A notary in France, what you're talking about is or notaire. That would be what we would call a closing attorney, like a real estate closing attorney. So
Yeah,
they are
yeah.
the legal person that has to sign off on all the documents and submit the documents, correct?
Yes, that's it. The French name is notaire, okay? And these are the only one able to finalize the sale of a French property. It's impossible to work with anyone else.
Got you. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. So you
No,
have
no problem.
so there's a single fee that would be paid to the notaire, whether it's one or two. If it's two,
Yeah,
they would split the same fee. Okay.
exactly.
So and the compromis de vente is basically, does that mean when you sign that, does that kind of like secure the property while you're going through the process so no one else can purchase, or is
Oh,
that something else?
of course. The compromis de vente is actually everything that needs to be spoken about the sale before the final sale. It's all about the property itself, what's included, what's not included, the price, if you need a mortgage to finance it or not. Okay. And once a compromis de vente is signed, the property is completely locked for yourself. There is no way the seller can take it off. He could, but he would have to pay you a fee, which is usually 10% of the sale price. Okay.
Gotcha. Perfect. And the reason I bring that up is, again, in the United States, we have real estate listings where you have one agent who is associated with one property, and maybe not multiple agents. But in France, I believe any agent could potentially sell any property. They just have to get in touch with the owner. But the compromis de vente says when that's signed, it basically takes it off the market temporarily while you go through this process.
Exactly. Once the compromis de vente is signed, you are the only one on it, and you would have to either buy it or take it off officially. There is no other way.
Gotcha. Okay, so compromis de vente is signed. What is the next part of the process?
And then usually there's a timing which is mandatory between the compromis de vente and the final deed. It's from 1 to 3 months, might be longer, but not shorter. So let's say 2 to 3 months usually. Okay. Of course, it's usually made to let you, the buyer, get a mortgage. Of course, you guys are American, and most of you do not get a mortgage because it's very complicated to get one in France, even though it's possible. But given that most French people have a mortgage, we need time to get it, which is why we usually have 2 to 3 months. And then, of course, you need to leave time to the notary to finalize the whole file. Probably ask everyone around if you can buy the property, because, for example, the mayor's house can have a droit de préemption. So sometimes the mayor's house says, no, I want to buy the property before Mr. Jones. And in that case, they would buy it before you. No worries. This is very, very rare, but still you have to wait. So let's say 2 to 3 months. Once this delay is gone, you can finally sign it. Okay. So you would pay the price plus something around 7 to 8% of the sale price. These are the notary fees. Okay. And a big part of this 7 to 8% are taxes, and the remaining amount is for the notary, as I said before.
Okay. And my understanding is also, just talking about fees and taxes, the majority of the listings like that I see online, the agent's fee is included often in the price. If it's not included, it needs to be, they have to explicitly say, it's not included. But
this is very rare. But
very rare.
It might happen. Just check the ad, but it's usually included.
Great. So when you if that's included and you've made an offer, the offer's been accepted, agent's fee is taken care of in that price. This 7 to 8% is then on top of the purchase price. That's going to pay the fees for the notary and then the taxes for the purchase itself.
Yes.
All right. And then are there any other taxes that you are paid at that point, like when the contract is closed or the deed is signed?
You might pay some fees, but these are not really fees. These are taxes which you would have to pay at some point. For example, there is a taxe foncière, which we'll speak about later. When you buy the property, you might be asked to pay the taxe foncière in advance so that the seller would pay in full later. Okay, but this is not related to the sale; it's related to the property itself. Okay,
I got you.
If we really speak about the property itself, you would only pay the notary fees, 7 to 8% of the sale price. Okay, you do not need to call another lawyer or solicitor for the British people because it's not mandatory, and the notary is supposed to do it himself. Okay, and you do not pay extra fees, so it doesn't make sense, in my opinion, to pay more and more fees. My advice would be you to get an English-speaking notary so that you can discuss with them, especially about the compromis de vente or any questions you have, and we'll be able to help you and explain you everything you need.
I got you. And so that is the purchase process. So those taxes are involved. Now let's move on to something you just mentioned, which is once you already own the property. This is, again, we're not talking about renting it out yet, but just just through the ownership
Owning
of the
it.
property. There are a couple of what we would just call annual property taxes
Yeah,
in the United States. Can we talk about that a little bit?
of course. It's quite simple. It's actually only two taxes, that taxe foncière, which is, I guess, the property tax in the US, and the taxe d'habitation. And if you don't pay the taxe d'habitation, you would pay the taxe sur le logement vacant anyway. So let's just keep it simple: taxe foncière and taxe d'habitation. I cannot give you any amount at the moment, of course, because they depend on the property and they depend on the location of the property. Because actually, these taxes are made of very small percentage given to the town, the city, the county, etc., etc. And of course, it depends on where you have bought the property. Just so you understand, you have at least ideas. We have a lot of clients, and we can see many different tax foncières. And myself, of course, as a French guy, I pay my own taxes. Just so you understand, I've got a 200 square meters office in Marseille here, in a middle neighborhood, and I pay 4,000 euros a year tax foncière. One of my clients recently paid 15,000 euros for a castle in the southwest of France. I pay something around 2,000 euros for a house near the sea in Carré-Lorouet as well. And I would say that the cheapest one I've ever seen in my life was something around 400 to 500 euros. So let's say, depending on the property, from 500 to 10, 15, 20,000 euros for a big property like a castle or a very expensive property.
Well, going back to our example when we started, so let's say someone's interested in buying this property. It's 129,000 euros. So these two property taxes, are they based on the purchase price value, or is there like a tax value that the local?
No, they are based on the value, which is actually calculated by the tax office itself. Okay.
All right. So not necessarily, you can't necessarily figure it out by what you had paid for the property. There's an official value that the local government or county government will have for
and
it.
As I said, it depends on the place itself, because you won't pay the same taxes for exactly the same value in Bourg-en-Bresse, in Besançon, in Marseille, and in Paris, because the rates are different. So it's pretty much impossible to know in advance how much you'll pay, but you can ask the owner, the seller, how much he's paying at the moment for any property you're interested in.
Great. So that's something that would just be part of your due diligence when you're considering purchasing a property, to ask about number one, and budget for once you find out generally what it's going to be.
Yeah, my advice is to ask the seller how much he's paying in taxes and in energy consumption, water, electricity, and heating, of course, because again, especially given the circumstances in France at the moment and the wars around, blah blah blah, these might be very expensive depending on how the property is heated. So this is really something you might be interested in before considering buying a property.
Great. Well, maybe we'll talk about that in another discussion sometime.
Yeah. No problem.
All right. So we've talked about the taxes and the kind of the purchase process. Now we've talked about the annual property taxes, the two that you mentioned. Yeah. Without knowing exactly what they are, we just need to know that those are two things that someone would have to pay. Yeah. Now let's talk about if I bought this. Again, I'm not going to become a tax resident. I'm just going to spend maybe a couple of months in France, enjoy the house. But while I'm gone, I want to rent this out on Airbnb, let's say.
Yeah.
That income, when I rent the property out, let's talk about the taxes on that and what the process is.
Right. So first thing to know is that if you ever rent a French property, the rental income would have to be declared and taxed in France. Even though you're a US resident and US tax resident, this would remain taxable in France, thanks to the France-US tax treaty, which is the same from pretty much any other country in the world, right? And then it's quite simple. If you, as a non-resident, you have a 20% basic tax rate plus social charges, which are prélèvements sociaux, at a 17.2% rate. So the basic rate for you guys as American is 37.2% of the profit. Okay. And then, depending on how deep you want me to go, I can explain you very quickly how it works. So you have at the moment two different options, which is the microbic. Okay, microbic, as its name states, is a micro. It's small, so it's usually made for people with a small rental income who don't want to bother themselves with account, blah blah blah. So you actually just need to declare the gross income. You will get a 50% allowance, and then you will pay 37.2% on the remaining amount, right?
All right. So yeah. So let me just clarify, make sure I understand that. So say I just own this single property. I'm not a professional, with a ton of rentals. I rent this place out. Let's say I make for the whole year 10,000 euros.
No.
For that, do you say you get a 50% allowance off of that?
Yeah.
So that would bring us down to 5,000 euros. Then
to
on the
which we would
5,
apply
right, and then the 5,000 euros is
37.2%.
37.2%. Okay.
So in this case, in this very precise case, you'd pay 1,860 euros of taxes. Okay, this is the very first option, which is very simple because actually you almost don't need anything, just one tax return a year, from April to May, the year after. Okay, very simple. Second option is called régime réel, so it means reality in French. In this case, it's a bit more complicated because you have to be registered as a rental, finished rental income, right? You have to get a number so that you're registered and you can send your account. And then you have to provide the tax office a set of accounts every year on which you would say, okay, this is my rental income. These are my expenses based on the reality. And you'll be able to amortize the property, which would reduce the final taxable profit. Okay, quite a lot depending on the amount. And then you would pay 37.2% on the real final taxable amount. Right. Of course, the profit for you is that usually the amortization of the property reduces the profit so much that most of the time people don't have to pay anything in the end.
Okay, that's perfect. So that is more like traditional rental income in the United States, where you can amortize and deduct expenses, and often, again, pay little or no tax. So if someone was going through this situation, say they contacted you about this, is that a calculation you could do potentially and say, well, you should choose this one versus that one? Or is it based on purely on an income level?
We have a simulator on our website, FrenchTaxOnline.com. You have a simulator fully in English, and you just need to provide a few figures, and they would give you the few amounts in which for both options, so that you would see by yourself the difference.
Excellent, perfect. Well, this is terrific. I've learned a ton from this. I try to do as much research as I can, but my French is not as good as it should be. And it's always good to go to an expert like you, someone who does this day in, day out. And by the way, for people watching, Giraud himself is a multiple property owner. So he doesn't just understand this stuff as a professional doing it, but he does it himself personally.
No.
So Giraud, where's the best way to get in touch with you?
I'd say by email. We have a few different emails. So you can contact us on info@FrenchTaxOnline.com. You can also go on the website, FrenchTaxOnline.com, and go on the contact page and contact us through the website. We have a YouTube channel as well, on which you'd find our information. So in the end, I guess it's quite simple to reach us. We would always reply you, even though we're not able to do something. We usually reply within 24 to 48 hours maximum.
Excellent. And for those who haven't seen, their French Tax Online YouTube channel is excellent. and very high
Thank you.
quality, very direct, easy to understand information. I will put links to all the contact information and also the YouTube channel below this video. So if you have questions, please reach out to Giro.
Yeah,
I
with
appreciate
pleasure.
you. I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to doing more of these.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much, Tommy. Have a good day and speak soon.
All right. Au revoir.
Bye. Au revoir.